Hello everyone, I hope you must doing well. So in this video we are going to learn about the bump map, the displacement and the height, right? So we are having again the default cube, and let's get back into the shading, and we are having the cube and let's back into the shading, right? The render. Right now it is not showing anything because there is no material assigned with it. So we can press new and we are having this one. Yeah. So first thing which we are going to discuss, that is the bump map, right? The bump value, how it is going to affect and how you are going to use the bump map into your object, right? So for that what we can do, if you haven't watched that video of noise texture and the Warner texture, that was, I think that was a previous video of before this video right now which you are watching. So please watch that, as we are going to use the noise texture to display the bump values, right? So let's add a noise texture. Screencast is over here, you can see, and also we can see the effect of this overview of this texture by Control Shift and left mouse button, right? For now we can disable the wireframe and we are using the cycles, right? And to increase the contrast of black values, again we are going to use the color ramp. And if you haven't watched that video or you are confusing like what is the noise or the color ramp is, you needed to watch the previous video as I told before also. So we can increase the contrast by grabbing these marker and making them close to each other, right? You can have from this also by holding the shift, so that you having the more control over the motion. And we having this, and we can preview this by Control Shift and left mouse button, right? So let's add a bump node, and again the output which it is having the normal, and the whatever bump if we want, that is going to be plugged into this one, right? As we don't need the noise texture over here, we can disconnect this one, and we needed the principal BSDF should be directly connected with the material output, and we are going to use this value of these two nodes, right? You can select, let undo this, yeah, you can select these both and Control J in your keyboard so that you can make a frame, and F2 to rename it, and you can name the frame. Even you can by pressing the N in your keyboard, probably in the node, the frame over here, you can change the color also, right? So this value we are going to use in the bump map to display or to see the how the bump value is having, right? So we are going to connect the color into the height, and we can see it is there. So let's preview this node again, Control Shift and left mouse button. So what we have, you can directly preview this one also by Control Shift and left mouse button, and you can directly click over here, Control Shift and left mouse button. Okay, so what it is having, whatever the black values are, okay, that is creating the noise, or you can think the inverse of it. Okay, so the black values which we are having over here, that is 0. Okay, so that the bump texture is going to work. How it is going to work, right? You can add different textures, or you can add different images to see the different effect and to get whatever result you want. And by this you can play this like this. Okay, for example, this black values you want as a bump, you set with and you can play with. These are the normal map and it is the main display. You can change the color also. Yeah, so this is the bump map, and we can strength also, for example increase or decrease the strength, and there is distance also, but probably you will not find that much effect on the display, the material which it has, so let it be 1. Okay, you can play with the strength to increase or decrease the effect of the bump. All right, so we covered with the bump map, and let's discuss about the displacement. We can disconnect this one by control and right click, so that we can draw a line in between and that connection will get disconnected. Yeah, so bump map we covered, and the another map which we are going to cover, that is the displacement. We don't have any parameter over here as a displacement. When you are going to use the bump, you needed to use this node as an input, and whenever you wish to use the displacement, then you needed to come into the material output, and there is an option for the displacement, that option or the parameter you are going to use. And again Shift A, and the manner we used the bump as a connector between this and this, the bump, and in the same manner we are going to use the displacement. Okay, so before seeing any result on the displacement, you should switch into the cycle, and into the material of this object you needed to go down, and under the setting, probably you are having the bump only, you needed to switch displacement and bump. Right, for now we can disconnect right now, and if you are selected with displacement only, then bump value will not going to work. So it is fine to have displacement and the bump both, right? So we can plug the displacement over here, and it is displacing the mesh completely. It is changing the topology of your mesh, right? So you can play with different values. You can hold the shift so that you are having more control over the values, and it is the displacement which is having different parameter of height, scale, mid-level, right? And we are having different what we can say, the space on which the displacement is going to work, that is object space and the world space, right? We can use the texture also. Let's Shift D this one, and we can plug the color value into the height. Yeah, it is having this. Let's decrease. Yeah, so before that, by default it is having these values as only the displacement node, but you can add a procedural textures or the node, or you can add a different image textures also to get the different results into the displacement. Okay, you can play with the scale also. Yeah, so displacement is completely destroying the topology of your mesh, right? So be careful with that. So we covered the bump, right? Probably we are not going to see any effect because displacement is completely overhead over the bump values, right? Yeah, so the next thing which is left, that is the height values, right? So how we can do that? We can switch into the, so let's keep this interface and switch into the different the scene, right? So copy settings, and we are over here. Okay, we can get back by pressing over here, right? Let's name it as a height, right? So now we are going to discuss about the height values. Okay, so Shift A, Shift A, let's add a plane, right? We needed to subdivide so that the height values will work perfectly fine. Yeah, so if you are not having the division of edges or the faces, you can switch wireframe, right? Yeah, so let's get back into the shading, and we needed to switch over here also so that we can see the wire. We can increase the y-axis size. So we have this. We added a material in the same manner over here, or you can click over here also. Yeah, so for the height values, what we can do, we again going to use the displacement value, and again we are going to set the bump only by displacement and the bump, right? And let's add a displacement. Let me add every node so that after that I will explain. Yeah, wait a minute. Yeah, if you are not familiar about the RGB curve, we can use the color ramp also that we will use, and the texture coordinate which we already discussed, right? The RGB curve, if you're not familiar about, we are going to use the color ramp also so that you will get the idea, and the separate XYZ. So it is doing nothing, as it is having different values X, Y and Z. So from this side, wait a minute, from this side X, Y and Z. Okay, so these three values are coming from the generated, right? X, Y and Z. But what we are doing over here, the separate XYZ is separating the different axes, as we are having now control with different X, Y and Z, right? So if we only want the X coordinate should be moved further, right? Let's erase this one. So what we want, so instead of X, Y and Z which is coming from this side, right? So what we want, we want only the X axis should be moved from this node. Okay, so we separated the X axis and the Y and Z over here, and it is not connected with this, right? So only X axis is going over there, only X, right? It is going like this, and we are going to connect the displacement over here. Yeah, only X. Okay, so that's why we are adding the X. You can also switch Y or Z, or yeah. Let's hide the annotation. Yeah, and we have the displacement we can plug over here. Yeah, so we are going to use the RGB curve, as it is going to help you out by a simple curve, right? By clicking over edge over here, you can see the surface it is displacing, right? But one more thing, if you are in the EV, right, probably that will not going to work. So whenever you are dealing with the displacement, try to switch back into the cycle, right, so that you can see the effect, right? So whatever curve we are making over here, that is also displayed into the surface, right? Yeah, so if you are not familiar about the RGB curve, we are not going to use completely, no. We can press M to mute, or we can control, or we can press Alt and drag out so that the connection will remain the same. Why the screencast get disabled all the time? Okay, let's tell you again. So here we are, and you are not familiar about the curves, the RGB curve. We can hold the alt and click, hold and drag, right? So that it will maintain the connection between these two, right? So we can drag and drop the color ramp and we can play with this, right? We can add a different, yeah, so you can play with the color ramp, or you can add a RGB curve, whatever you want. Yeah, so this is the height values. So in this video you learn about the displacement. We can have this, okay, it is a bump, and we can describe this one. It is a displacement. For the displacement you needed to switch over the displacement and bump, and there is another thing, that is height value, that you can control by this. Yeah, control spacebar to have the full screen wherever your mouse it is, right? My mouse, it is over here right now, so it is making the full screen of this window. If my mouse is over here, control spacebar, it is making the full screen of this window. Let's make this over here also so that you can see. Yeah, bump, displacement and the height. Yeah, so I hope I cleared all the things, and let's end this video, and in the next video we are going to implement whatever we learn, right? The noise texture, the XYZ, the separate XYZ, the texture coordinate, and different things we learn. Okay, so in the next video we are going to learn about the masking, right? So we are going to take the practical example and we are going to work on that. So till that, bye bye, take care.